Manuel, are we live?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening. Just give me a second.
Okay.
Sorry, our viewers, wherever you're watching us all over the world, we've come later than expected. 1 hour late. We had some technical issues, and now they've been sorted out. and welcome to this special edition of the Bakwetu TV. And today we'll be talking about the diaspora, but people must be wondering, why are we talking about the diaspora when there was just a conference 2 weeks ago? Um, I asked, actually, the idea was to have one of the conference hosts, one of the keynote speakers in this show, and also I wanted the Minister of Foreign Affairs to come in, but unfortunately, he must be busy with the AU conference. But we're gonna have a follow-up program the following week, and hopefully we're gonna have one of the people who was at the just ended conference, diaspora conference, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs. I've already written to him. Yeah, but the reason why I decided to talk about that, I've mentioned one of the reasons was to talk about what happened in Livingston. But then we decided, no, let's go ahead, because after talking to one of the leaders who was there, I discovered that there were a number of issues that I think we need to talk about and follow up. And one of the issues was I asked the lady who attended the conference, was there a diaspora policy that was presented by the government? And the answer was no. So my question was, for us to have a conference and discuss things on behalf of the diaspora, there should be a strategy. And then once we've deliberated, come up with the actionable issues, then there should be an alignment between what we discuss and the policy. So nobody took the policy there as far as I'm concerned. And then I'm not saying what happened in Livingston was bad. I'm not condemning anybody. And it was a good thing it happened. It's long overdue. But the question is, were all the diaspora groups presented there? I did, and this is what prompted me to come up with this program, because I did my own research. Because as a host, you don't just come live without researching. So I did my research, spoke to a number of diaspora groups, just like myself. If it wasn't for Linda Banks to bring the diaspora the guys who hosted the program, we wouldn't have known that there was a conference arranged. And I spoke to a number of diaspora groups, including in Europe, in America, and the co-op. None of them was aware. And then, according to the information I was given by one of the person I spoke to, this is first-hand information. One of uh, the leaders of the groups. Apparently, there were about three diaspora groups that were represented there, and yet we've got so many diaspora groups. So the question is the Zambian diaspora fragmented, or do we have issues, organizational issues? Because how can we have such a massive conference? The president was there. He was supposed to be there for 1 hour. He was there for 4 hours. I think Stanley Kakubo must have been there for longer than that. But the question was all the diaspora groups represented? And I think the answer is no. I would let me just preamble what we're gonna talk about today. Today we're gonna just talk about the definition of a diaspora, and then what United Nations says, AU, World Bank. The diaspora came as a result of the children of Israel, going back from Egypt to Israel. So that's how this diaspora thing was coined. It's in the Bible. And who are the diaspora? When you look at United Nations, World Bank, they all talk good things about the diaspora. The AU says the diaspora is the sixth region of Africa, and our president also stated in so many forums, including most of the forums I attended, that it's the 11th province. But the question that I will be posing to you guys at the later stage, is it really the 11th province or the sixth um, 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 region of Africa? I was reading one article. It says the hidden wealth of the African diaspora. Why do we still measure our diaspora wealth by hands down, when it's their brain that could create infinitely more value back home? Is it the case of the prophet is not recognized or accepted in his own hometown? To me, the diaspora might just be that card Africa has hidden under a sleeve far too long. These are some of the quotes about the diaspora. Let me just, and then when you look at World Bank on the 11th of May this year issued a statement on the diaspora. The World Bank is saying this year, this 2021, $630 billion was remitted from the diaspora, and that is just 5% of the diaspora disposable income. Then the question is, what if the diaspora just increased that 5% to 20%? Because that 5%, if you look at it, is consumption. But then we're looking at real investment. So if the diaspora just increased another 15, 20%, um, then the diaspora is untouchable. But then if you look at my topic, I said leveraging the diaspora, both human capital and financial capital. But then I also mentioned that how can we turn that diaspora drain into a diaspora gain? We're talking of real diaspora gain. I'll give you an example. It's estimated that there's 250,000 Zambians in the diaspora. And I don't think the Zambian government has got those statistics. And say, for example, if a Zambian had to remit $100, not towards consumption, but towards investment, we're talking of $25 million just there. That's how powerful the diaspora is. Uh, but, but, Mamuela, can you play that video I've sent to you about the diaspora, please? We only need the sound. I think Mamuela is trying to. Okay, before I go into the discussions, let me just give you some statistics. Um, there is, Zambia is one of the first countries to engage Zambians in the diaspora about the diaspora indaba. So we were one of the first countries to start talking about the diaspora. But and yet some countries that started later, Ghana, um, 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 Kenya, they've surpassed us. Um, Kenya, Ghana, their diaspora policy is even beyond African diaspora. They're even encouraging Native Americans to come back to Ghana to go and invest in Ghana. They've got one of the most powerful diaspora policies. Yeah, and Ghana has even gone ahead to have a diaspora um, affairs desk in the office of the president with a director general of the diaspora. Kenya, they've got one of the most powerful diaspora policies. Kenya has even called what is known as this is what I've been agitating about, Diaspora Advisory Council, which sits in the office of the president and advises the president of that country about what is happening in the diaspora. Kenya, on top of that, they've got what is known as Kenya Diaspora Alliance. It's a federation of 40 Kenyan um, diaspora groups all over the world coming into one umbrella. And not only that, this diaspora group is into an alliance of about 40 African diasporas. But then all this has happened because there is a policy in Kenya. The government has even provided land for diasporas to want to develop as a settlement when they retire, one as a new city. The city is called Malindi. The government has facilitated all that, and people in diaspora are now developing their universities. It's a greener city. Yeah, but then my question to you viewers: can any nation develop without the diaspora? I don't know who's gonna come first, Mr. Kelvin.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Your video is ready.
Okay, can you play the video, please?
In the world will grow without its diaspora. Diaspora has always been the blessing of nations. If you think about it, everybody you know in the Bible, from Joseph, diaspora, Isaac, diaspora, Abraham, diaspora, Ezra, Daniel, diaspora. Even the idea of Jesus coming down, diaspora, that God came down, diaspora. Jesus went to Egypt, diaspora, coming back home. Israel being formed in a day, diaspora. There is no nation that has grown without a collaboration and organization of its weighty diaspora. The brain drain that we'll experience has now been converted into a potential brain gain. And that gain must be understood by organizing to wake up the diaspora to its socio-economic and political destiny in the continent. The way that we work is that every year, about $48 billion is sent home in remittances. That $48 billion is so huge, it's the biggest income in the continent. But guess what is coming to solve? Welfare economics. Money for shoe, for house, for rent, and all of that. And we know that anybody living abroad sending money home is sending less than 5% of his income. About 95% is still sitting dark in his host country. Now, if we mobilize Africans to begin to understand that they can repatriate just 20% without losing the 5% that they have before, take another 15% and repatriate it home. But that repatriation now is not for welfare economics, it's for investment in ideas. Such that it's not just Americans who are investing in Florida Wave or in Jumia or in any of these countries. Africans can pull resources together and be the one funding the local ideas here. That is the association between local ideas and global relevance. The idea that we will pull funds in our brain gain and bring it home to fund ideas. So we need more incubators made by Africans for Africans, more accelerators made for Africans by Africans, intentionally searching for ideas, investing in ideas.
Yeah. So you can you hear that? But for that to be achieved, we have Zambian diasporas have to come together globally. Look at Kenya. They've achieved what they're achieving now because they are together. And then in Zambia, we started in 2008, 2009. And then something disappeared. The new government came in, everything disappeared, and then we started. I understand the PF are the diaspora police, which I've seen, and then UPND also. I was part of that group that was formulating it. I don't think it's been implemented. But Chasaya, you were one of the people who gave a keynote speech to the first diaspora indaba that happened in Zambia, and Levi Mwanawasa, may his soul rest in peace, and Rupia Banda may also his soul rest in peace. Can you just brief us what really happened there, the deliverables, and then what happened? Because we started in 2009, Nigeria hasn't not started, Ghana has not started, Kenya has not started, and all these countries which started later, they've surpassed us. Why? Over to you, Mr. Chasaya. And let me introduce Mr. Chasaya before. Mr. Chasaya is, we've known each other for a long time. He was my 2 years senior at Kansen Secondary School. And then he moved to Mpelembe School, secondary school, then went to the UK. He's a computer scientist. He's a computer expert, scientist. He's also, a lot of people know him. He's a musician. He loves art, music. But Mr. Chasaya, 2008-2009, you made a keynote speech at that diaspora indaba. What happened? And fast
Um,
forward
First of all,
up
Patrick,
to now.
and everyone, thank you for this opportunity to talk about the diaspora engagement with the motherland. I feel honored to be on TVBakwetu. As far as the Indawa goes, I think I have to give context. Before then, there had been attempts by Zambians in the diaspora to connect with government. And I think primarily one of the most contentious issues at the time was dual citizenship, which most people felt that if that was actualized, it would help Zambians in the diaspora to take an active role in the country. So primarily that's where it started from. And so different advocacy groups around the world would, have conferences, but there was never any attempt to connect with the government. I mean, it was just difficult. And so we realized, I belong to an organization called Zambia Diaspora Connect, that for us to achieve any headway, there had to be a means to connect with government, because after all, government implements policy. And so our involvement in the Indaba in 2009 came out because the government then, as you will recall, there was a global economic crisis. So the government under President Rupiah Banda were looking for ideas. And they thought that among the key orders they could look into was the diaspora. And so that there and then came our chance. And it was actually the very first time that the diaspora was able to connect. You have to recall at the time, because again, we're all fragmented. So when the invitation came, it was for us quite a big deal. And we felt that we had to deliver something to the government so that for future generations, that whatever changes would come out of that would matter. And I think that right now we can see some of the changes. They've taken time, but I can mention the dual citizenship clause. It came out of that. President Banda, after our active participation in that, also set up a diaspora desk. But as you know, with politics, because some of these things are tied to politics, immediately the MMD lost, they stopped it. It went quiet. And I think President Sata had a very different view, I would say negative view towards the diaspora. So that put cold feet under the water. Thankfully, under President Lungu, that was revised. And I think that if you look at the diaspora policy that they had, they make mention of the conferences that were happening under Zambia Diaspora Connect. And thankfully, again, to President Lungu and his government, they implemented the diaspora, so the dual citizenship clause. And today we can see some of the benefits, such as allowing, for instance, when I saw Frank Musonda playing for Zambia, it's because there's dual citizenship now. And if you think back, that was always a contentious issue. But now, even as we focus towards how can we participate in the country, dual citizenship is off the table. I think right now what we're focusing on is how do we meaningfully contribute, whether individually or as a group, to the economic development and technology transfer, and in so many aspects. So that's really background to the diaspora fight now and back then. But the important thing for me is that we always have to continue to speak. We have to have engagements like this so that people at home do understand that we matter. We do matter. Thank you.
Mr. Deshaya, before I go to other, that question was specifically for you because you attended that indaba. You mentioned the word fragmented, and this is what exactly happened in Livingstone. There were only 3 diaspora groups. This is not, I'm not creating anything. This came from one of the organizers. I spoke to her. on, I don't want to start mentioning names, but we had a lengthy discussion. I wanted her to come to this program because when I researched these countries like Kenya, 40 diaspora groups have come together and they are doing big things. They just invested in a $4 million thing, project in Kenya, in Malindi. Why are we fragmented? Where is the problem? Where do we have this problem? Because like the last conference, it's a good thing. The president was there, but why are we? Don't you think we need the government? Things like Kenya, they've done things like we have a policy to start with. The new government, have they implemented a policy? One, if we are the 11th province, do we have a desk somewhere in Ministry of Foreign Affairs as a diaspora? And because if we are not united, we cannot do anything. So why are we fragmented? Where is the problem? Who should bring us together?
I think that's a very complex question to answer. I wish I had an answer to that, but some of the things I can explain is just that, we all take different views and different approaches to how we should engage with the motherland. And also that the cycle of, networking can be different. So for instance, I know people in Australia, UK, and others know people on different levels, right? So interests sometimes bring you together. And sometimes you may not even know that another group wants to do the same thing that you're doing. It's just kind of a difficult situation. But I think that overall, as we go on, and for me, I'm very positive that this is a growing thing. It should keep on growing. I mean, as we learn to interact, as we learn to network. And remember that right now, we are so much lucky with the technology that has taken place, and it's very easy to access or know about what other groups are out there. So that's a plus, and I think that we have to take advantage of that. So I'm very positive. I think as we go on, there will be more groups coming together, finding common ground. And sometimes you must also have something that brings you together. For instance, I think Zambians in Australia putting up or investing in Zambia in farms. So there must be something that drives you together for you to move forward, because otherwise we'll just be talking shop. So in my view, I'm very positive. I think initiatives like this, so we are aware, I know that people are watching. So those who don't know about TVBakwetu and other organizations about the diaspora, they will get aware, but there has to be something that drives us together, in my view.
Thank you so much, Machasaya. But Kelvin, you always talk about data-driven statistics, and a lot of these countries, Kenya, they are doing very well because they've done census. They believe the diaspora is a developmental partner, and the government is acting as an enabler. So they've done statistics. They know how many Kenyans are in the diaspora, 3 million, and they've even calculated the GDP. And do we have such things in Zambia? And do you think we should have a diaspora desk somewhere to coordinate all these diaspora groups? And thirdly, don't we need a diaspora advisory council, just like in Kenya, to bring all the diaspora groups together? Over to you, Kelvin.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Great. Good to see you, Chasaya, my brother, with the North.
And Kelvin, introduce yourself,
okay,
please,
great.
to the viewers.
My name is Kelvin Chanda-Chimba. I am based in Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm an IT project manager, a former stockbroker. I definitely possess, some qualifications which enable me survive. I've experienced exposure to so many ways of doing things, through networking and how other communities come together and pursue an agenda, right? But coming to your point, I've always addressed this issue on fragmentation. Why are we fragmented? The one thing about us Zambians is we are too political. Everything is about politics. If Chasaya belongs to Socialist Party, Frank belongs to DP, Mr. Bimbe belongs to UPND, you belong to PF, you won't work together. We cannot differentiate between good knowledge and political affiliation. We can't. I had an awesome interview with Brian Mushimba. That's an asset to the country. You see that? But nobody will talk to Brian because he belongs to the opposition. We don't understand what democracy is. So if we don't understand the basics of that, how do we, as a community of Zambians in the diaspora, galvanize ourselves and work together and share these brilliant ideas? 400 Kenyans in Atlanta, Georgia, came together. 400 Kenyans came together. They're building a multi-million-dollar hotel in Nairobi. Why not us? You see that? Coming to to your question regarding a diaspora desk. No, we don't need it. We need a law. We don't even need policies. Policies can be changed. UPND can change the policy. The new party that comes in will change the policy. They're going to disturb every milestone that these great minds, have come together and put together. You see that? So we need a diaspora law because people will not just come in and change that law, right? Point number 3. I always stress data, because data is the now and data is the future. You cannot make blanket decisions without understanding the extent of the problem, the efficacy of the solution. You see, you can't do those things. Embassies around the world, Zambian embassies around the world, must step it up and collect the right data. It's very easy to create a database. Your name, your date of birth, your address, your profession. You see that? We have, computer professionals here. We have accountants. We have lawyers. We have engineers from Zambia. But how is it that we don't have much information? Real quick, do you know that if the Zambian government wanted to take advantage of us in the diaspora, and I'm a big proponent of this idea, we can fund CDF. We can fund CDF. You know how? We are remitting money every day to our relatives in Zambia for various things, food support, education support. We are constructing, we are owning farms and things like that. Every $100 that I send, I'll be happy if my government says we're going to tax you $1.50. Seriously, I'll be very happy, because out of the millions of dollars we are remitting, guess what? In a year, the government can easily access 35, 40, 50, 60 million dollars from Zambians in the diaspora.
But Shimba, let me just hold your peace. I just want to say something and you respond to that. But Shimba, if you listen to that video that I played, this guy is saying let's move away from consumption because that's what we are doing. But then the point is, I don't think the Zambian government has the number of Zambians in the diaspora, the statistics. Because if we had, somebody who went to Livingstone would have asked, I haven't seen Shimba. He's the leader of that group in Atlanta. I haven't seen Bimbe. He's the leader of that group in London. I haven't seen Chasaya. He's the leader of that group in that. Because we don't have data.
So
now the point I wanted to make about Shimba, if there is an estimate of Zambians in the diaspora, they are saying about 250,000. So There's so many projects that requires to be done in Zambia. One of them is we don't have a pharmaceutical company in Zambia. It costs about 50 to 100 million to put up one. We've got Zambians who are in diasporas who are skilled, and the money can be found. Let me finish, Machimba. We're looking for 300 million to pump into Mopani to operate at an optimum level. And then we've been agitating that let's get 50% in KCM once you start the negotiations. So we only need 28%. That 28% might be $500 million. But the point I'm trying to make is, if the government can come up as an enabler and say, you people in the diaspora, because according to the statement somebody made at the just ended Zambia Diaspora Conference, was that 91% of Zambians wants to invest in Zambia, not consumption, remittances. So if they're invested, what is that 91%? Nobody has shown the figures. So per adventure, we are 250,000. If one Zambian contributed $100, we talk of 25 million. We only need another 25 million to set up a pharmaceutical companies, because we need to start running away from the diaspora being the remittance of money for consumption, but as now investors, because we've got the human capital and the financial capital. Over to you, Bachim.
You're very right. I wanted to speak to something I did when Dr. Ngosa Simbiakula was the ambassador in DC. I also own a technology company, which I'm in partnership with some Indian colleagues. So I wrote a proposal to the ambassador to say, look, I'm running this IT company. These are some of the things we can do other than just running your website, but we can also incorporate collecting data about how many Zambians do we have in the US, where are they located, what are they doing, and things like that, right? Guess what? I didn't receive any response. I later found out the person that is actually running the embassy's IT is an American fellow. There, right there, lies the problems with us Zambians. We don't want to empower ourselves. If I empower Frank today, Frank will be bigger than me. I don't want that to happen. We need to change that mentality. One of the major theme about that conference was changing mindsets to ignite growth. But can you define the mindset? Has anybody done any research to determine the mindset of a Zambian? Or we just speak in general terms, right? What's the mindset of a Zambian towards what? Towards development, towards personal growth, towards supporting each other to grow and things like that, right? So, I mean, it's a step in the right direction, but there's more that needs to be done. We've been talking about galvanizing ourselves. Yes, we're going to have diversity, right? But we have to keep pushing. We have to keep fighting. Rome was not built in a day. We need to identify the weaknesses that prevent us from galvanizing as a people and work on those weaknesses. Assure each other that this is the goal. Document things. People can't buy into verbal agreements. Oh, you know what? This, that. We can't do that. We need to learn to document things. Let's come up with a plan. This is the plan we're going to execute. We're going to, do this and that. I think we'll be in a good space. Thanks.
But Shemba, you've mentioned something very important. We were saying Kenya has got a diaspora desk. Ghana has got a director of the diaspora in the office of the president. So, but you've mentioned something very important: law, because as Bachasaya said, we started in 2009, and then that wasn't law; it was a policy. And then what happened when the new government came into power? Because if we've got a law, which means our foreign affairs minister would have gone with that law in that conference and said, this is what the law says. This is our strategy now into law. Now let's align what you guys are doing into this. But I don't think this happened, because I asked the lady and says, did the minister come with the strategy or policy? Says no. Then what were you doing there? That's the question I asked her. But let's move on. Bamwelwa, are we fragmented?
Yes.
And why?
I think we are very fragmented in nature as Zambians, and I think that's one thing we should continue agreeing with each other, because I think we try to pretend that we're other people. So I'll give an example, a little controversial here, but you've used examples from Ghana, you've used examples from Kenya. We are not Ghanaian, we're not Kenyan. So who are we as Zambians? I think Mr. Chanda, Kelvin Shimba has alluded to the fact that, has anybody done research to who is a Zambian? Because if you know who a Zambian is, then you will know how to apply whatever it is you're going to try and apply to a Zambian. So the fragmentation that we are in, I'll take you back to the definition of the diaspora. You alluded to the fact that it normally alludes to the Israelites, but there are different types of people in the diaspora. Yeah. And oftentimes, some people allude the term diaspora to an involuntary movement. So you didn't move because you chose to. You moved because there was a need, or because, that kind of thing. But when you look at the Zambian population, some people, a lot of the Zambians, I might be wrong on this one, but a lot, or it seems like a lot of the Zambians go abroad for status symbol. So if I move to the UK as a status symbol, I have not moved involuntary. I can't even be called somebody in the diaspora. I'm just a migrant, which is the start of our problems. Some of us are migrants and some of us are diasporians. Some of us are, I've heard of Zambians who have run into other countries as refugees. So if people don't ascertain who you are to start with, how do you apply anything, or how do you bring people together? Because we're all so different. There are so many people in the diaspora that are just there. It's a status symbol. They've always wanted to live in the USA or in America, so they're there now. But you can't then harness them and say, look, you have an obligation back home, because they have moved on. You get me? And that's why even the excitement about having your different nationality or different passports is something that is such a big deal, because you did not go there as somebody in the diaspora. So even when the government is insisting that, oh, look, you are the 11th province and everything, it doesn't apply to every Zambian. And maybe if we started from that point where we can ascertain who really is in the diaspora, and if they're not part of that diaspora group, how does the government harness them in to become part of that diaspora, where they have that mindset where they say, look, we have an obligation, as much as we are maybe comfortable and stuff like that, maybe we have an obligation. But the defragmentation also happens because when they move, or I move out of Zambia, the requirements that are put on me are very different. I'll give you an example. So if I'm in the UK, I get paid £1,000. In Zambia, that is automatically about 18,000 kwacha, I think, at the moment, I think. So when you say 18,000, here in Zambia, that is like mega, all right? I'm in the UK, I have pressures. The bills, maybe my rentals are 400, tax rate, land rate, my insurance. By the time I'm coming to the end of my first day after pay, I have maybe 100, 150 pounds. And then the Zambians are now demanding, my relatives in Zambia demanding, that one needs shoes, that one needs this, that one needs that. So we are not jointed because we're not understood. The two of us are not either understanding each other. And that's where some of that stems from, because then I have a bit of it feels like a black tax on you, and you're a little offended because I've also got my pressures. So sometimes that's where that stems off. And I feel like we look to the wrong people to put us together. The people that are supposed to actually put us together by policy or by law is the government. And they're the ones who are our bosses, essentially. And they're the ones that know, or who are supposed to know, the human capital. Like you've expressed yourself, we said we need a lot of data. That's really true. Because if you have the data on the ground, you need to know. And the other element as well is that when you look at the group abroad, you have the specialists, you have the general chintuwingis who are not specialists, who will not be able to invest $100 every month. So schemes or whatever it is that the government needs to create needs to match your earning capacity or your earning capabilities. Then we're not so and that's where the fragmentation comes on. There's not proper information about who we are, where we are, what we are doing, how much we're earning, and what we can then put into a country. I think that's where I would.
That was fantastic, Mamuelo. But you mentioned something. when I was researching, I discovered that countries like Ghana and Kenya, they've actually classified diasporas into two. There's active diaspora and an active diaspora. This
Inactive.
is where you see that a country is serious. They know that this is the active diaspora, and that's where they have to target their strengths. This is where we need to collect we need to raise the money. But Bimbi, I know you're looking at me like that. I'm coming back to you, Frank, on fragmentation. You're a human capital specialist, and we're talking about human capital here. What makes us so fragmented, and what
I
can
think
make us come together and achieve big projects, not consumption?
I think for me, there's a time that stands out more than any other event was when we had the COVID outbreak, and I think PS Norman Chupakupaku organized he organized the group to come together, and we did this group with a few of us. We did it for almost a year, and something came out from that where we came to say, no, in our country, our people back home, we need to raise money so we can send this equipment so we can help, because they haven't got the equipment that they need. The people in the hospitals they're dying, the staff haven't got the equipment that they need. And the response was underwhelming. It was the most underwhelming thing I ever saw from our people. I was talking to a friend of mine, and as a Zambian fundraising, we did this via Gazup. We managed to raise about $15,000. The Malawan groups, they raised about $500,000, way out there. So it's a commitment that people have of investing back home. So if people can't sacrifice when there's a crisis, then you start asking questions: how are they going to think about investing back home? And a few things have been touched on. One of the things that have been touched on is the embassies. As we've had, somebody's IT who's American guy, so you can't get anybody. He hasn't got any interest of Zambians. I remember a few years ago we went to the High Committee. We went to the embassy in London. Worst place I went to, I was like, I didn't feel Zambian over there. I feel like people come over and they feel they've got the job. They don't understand that we are the people who come in, we earn, and we can invest back home. And if you go to the High Commissioner and you get that treatment, and then the government comes and tells you, say, it's a good idea, we'll take £1.50 from the money you send back home. It's a good idea. But if you go to High Commissioner and people just don't treat you like a Zambian, you'd be like, no, I don't want to keep my £1.50 because you don't treat me like I belong. So there's this separation that exists between the people here and the people back home. And the people thinking the people here, as Moelo has explained, earn a lot of money, so they expect people to be sending them money for them to use however they want. And then there's investing. How do you so we talk about investing. There has to be a clear path of what you're investing in. It has to be described and you have to understand. So I'm not an expert at this, but I invest in stocks and shares. But I had to study that for 6 months to try and understand what this is all about and how to make sure I'm not putting in more money than I can afford to put in. I had to understand this. And people have to understand how much, what are they going to invest in? Are they going to lose money? Or are they going to gain anything? At the end of the day, it's not about just sending money back home to build something. We want to send money so that when people retire, when people go visit, they say, I've got the holiday home, I've got this and the other, I've got that and that, or I can see what the money has built. So there needs to be something to say, this is where the money is going to be. This is a person who's going to invest in it. And this is who we're going to trust. And then that brings to my last point. We need experts. And for me, that's always been a thing. We do one thing, right? When somebody goes abroad for education, everybody's excited. Now think about this. Why did the Kaunda government start sending people abroad for education? Expertise. It wasn't just go and study in England. No, it was go and learn how they do things in England and come and show us how to do them back home. But somewhere along the line, that disappeared. The people who went abroad just thought, you know what, I went to England, I went to America. They lost the concept of why they went abroad. And sometimes I feel as Zambians, sometimes we lose the concept. We lose the concept why we're here. We lose the fact that we're learning a great deal. Instead of showing off on what we've learned or what we know, why can't we say, I'll show you and I'll teach you what I've learned and what I know? I submit.
Thank you so much, Frank, for that. That was fantastic. Mr. Bimbe, introduce yourself and comment. You and Kelvin, you people who talk about knowledge management, data driven.
Yes, thank you very much.
Do you think, because I've checked on Ministry of Foreign Affairs, when I checked the Kenyan diaspora website, I found that it even stated the ministries that they were going to be working with, and one of the government agencies was statistics department. So which means they've got proper statistics of every Kenyan in the diaspora. They've even classified them as active and non-active. Where have we gone wrong as Zambia?
Okay, thank you
Because
very much.
What is happening in Livingstone? What happened in Livingstone? Very, very good. But three groups of the diasporans. Where are the other groups? There must be other 20, 30 groups. What has gone wrong?
Okay. Thank you very much, Patrick. My name is Nelson Bimbe. I'm based in the UK. I call myself just digital knowledge specialist because I work with digital knowledge, although my background is in computer science and software engineering. Now, coming to the topic, you've mentioned Ghana, you've mentioned Kenya. Where they are, it didn't happen just like that. There was a process. There is a backbone behind it. If we go back history with diaspora, I mean, if we take definition from which you've mentioned from the World Bank, and it says anybody who's moved from one country to another is in diaspora. But the AU defines it as anybody who's moved from Africa to other country outside Africa is diaspora. Therefore, they can contribute to the development of the continent. But the countries that have done this background work, like Ghana, Kenya, or even India, they've gone further to define what a diaspora is. For example, you mentioned that Kenya, they've defined them, everybody. Those who have Kenyan passports, they're still diaspora. Those who don't have Kenyan passport, they've relinquished them, but they've got an interest in Kenya. They can be part of that diaspora because they want to tap into that. From the Indian perspective, they've got a very good point. They say the diaspora serves as an important bridge to access knowledge, expertise, resources, and markets. All right, so that's the basis. Now, if you look at the Ghana concept note, which gave birth to the desk, to that ministry having, the Ghana Ministry of Foreign Affairs to have a desk, was well thought out. And that concept note defines a lot of things. It's not just about a single policy. Yeah, it's about incentives within the country as well. There's need to be changes of regulation. For example, the government could incentivize banks to create products for diasporas, easy way in terms of taxes. there are all sorts of things. And if you read that concept note, it's very good. And I feel Zambians lost an opportunity when they went to Livingstone, because that conference was partly sponsored by IOM, who did that in Ghana. So we stand at a better position now because we've seen what Ghana's done, we've seen what Kenya's done, although Kenyan one is a bit loose compared to the Ghana one is well thought out. The Indian one is a bit loose, although India has now started even exporting their expertise backwards. They exchange backwards and forwards. So it's that identification. So when we try to look at the benefits of the diaspora, it's not only remittances, it's skills, technology transfer, innovation, financial system, investment. But in order to do that, there ought to be incentives within the government. Certain laws need to be changed to target diasporans. For example, Ministry of Lands. How do we make it easier for people in diaspora to get land? Once you do that, we don't need all these policies going to the embassy, going to wherever. We don't need. However, I would also want to point that, again, probably we might also need to have a proper database, whatever you might want to call it, which could just list a few things like who the person is, what their skill sets are, what they are doing, that kind of thing, their location, because that could create a situation where in case of problems, you can call upon those people. And then finally, you also, to actually actualize that, you might just need a few, maybe an office. I wouldn't advocate to have that office in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The reason being that what needs to change to spur the diaspora to take part is cross-cutting. Because you have commerce, you have mines, you have lands, you have councils. Those can, tap into that one group that can come in and advise, but at the same time, working with diaspora to see which areas are diasporans itching. Then they'll say, oh yeah, we want mortgages, we want to build. All right, then Zambia Building Society banks, can you create this product for them? On top of that, no matter how many you give, we can give you an incentive through tax, for example.
But Mabimbe, that needs to be a law or an implemented policy. Do we have such a policy in Zambia?
I don't think it's a policy per se. It's just some regulatory changes in the way business is done. It's all about reducing the cost of doing business. That's basically what it is. Today, I'm in diaspora. If I want to open an account in Zambia, bank account, it's impossible. Why? Because the systems, the laws, the regulations mandates me that I have an NRC, I have to be present to put a signature. But if you change that and allow people to do it electronically, it will happen. So those are kind of small things that I'm saying you could do. The other small things you could do, for example, schools are lacking expertise. How do you, take Frank goes to a holiday in Zambia, he can take up a class, teach. Why not also incentivize certain schools or colleges to just provide accommodation for someone, and they provide free labor to teach, to expert those skills. So there are certain things that we can do. And I still think we are at this crossroad now that everybody has identified the value of diaspora. Other countries, India, China, Singapore, identified that long time ago. They know that. That's why they are doing so well. But for us, after the pandemic, we learned quite a lot about the value of the diaspora. If you look at India, remittances in 2017 to 2018, they paid 43% of the Indian government deficit. So that's a huge amount of money. So we stand at a better place at the moment. As Bachasaya said, we just need probably to start coming together. It's not going to work just for us as groups in diaspora.
So who should
we are looking at narrow
who should bring us together? Who should bring us
we
together?
need government to also come along. We need to work together. Private sector, government,
Partnership.
partnership.
Those I think
collaboration.
You're looking at for them, it's a potential market. For us,
I feel that there have been people in government who have been really idle and have been asking these questions. Why do we have ambassadors? Seriously, why have we had ambassadors in all of these times?
I think there is one paper that Patrick sent me. There's a good thing, and Bachasaya had alluded to that.
Ambassador is a great thing. It's a great
political competition
to connect. To connect the people from the country or in that country that they're serving, and also to create business. But it just feels like our ambassadors that we've had has been an opportunity for them to earn a living and not actually create the actual opportunities that are needed.
Yeah, I think Bachasaya put it very, very rightly. Why we have that problem? It's because sometimes there's political competition. They look at us as people who ran away from. We are unpatriotic. We have nothing to do. But deep down, they know that it's a political competition. If you get there, you might get their job because you know more. There are all sorts of things. So we need to kind of remove those things from the people's mind, and that way we can look at it. That's why I'm trying to say, if government can incentivize the private sector to create products and tap into the diaspora as a new market, then that can move forward without giving government, without all these politics, basically.
Babimbe, countries like Nigeria, Ghana, they're actually using the diaspora as a vehicle to export things from those countries into the diaspora.
Exactly. That's why when I read that statement from the way the Indians have defined it, it's the market as well. So they can find the market for both. They can also, vice versa. It does that. They've even gone further by looking at also regularizing, like the way
but then Babimbe, why are we not doing that? We started earlier than Bachasaya went to Zambia in 2009, and yet the Kenyans only started in 2014, and they are much better than us. Why?
Exactly. Why? It's the politics at the end of the day. It's the politics. It's the lack of trust. So again, if we just need to remove those emotional stuff out and look at it as a business. What is it that the diaspora can, by defining all those things that we need? Everybody looks at remittances, and do you know why? A lot of countries actually underreport remittances. You know the reason why? Because they fear that diaspora will have more power.
That's the thing. And so, they also fear that they won't get more aid. They won't get more aid from the countries they want to get aid from.
So for me, I think if we were to go further, I think the private sector could play a role, but obviously government needs to twist certain regulations. You don't need to go to parliament to change certain regulations, and then need to spur that
But Chasaya, back to you. Some of the information you sent me from the diaspora indaba you attended, one of the things that was discussed was resistance to the diaspora. Can you just shed some light on that, and has that resistance changed, and why? You are muted.
I apologize. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I also want to give context. I was past chair of the Zambian Canadian Foundation at some point, and many roles. So there was obviously interaction with the High Commission. And one of the frustrating experiences I had, and this even people in the community, was that when the High Commission wanted something done from their end, which would look good, they would promptly ask for your input or try and push you to do something. And I think that from what I've gathered, High Commissions or embassies, they report on activities that they're doing. Now, the other way around, when you would like something done on your end, there was so much lukewarm response, or when you want something done. And this, again, transferred to most of our people, which then was frustrating, because then when they come up and say, oh, would you like to put up a register, for instance, there's no way I'm going to put my details there, because these people are not helpful. And I think that really is a big problem. I do recall Kelvin mentioning that he had contacted the past ambassador in the US, about a proposal that he had, and never heard back. Not even saying, okay, we've received your proposal, we'll get back to you, and let's see how we do it. So there is that concept where, for some reason or another, they sometimes think we're all problems, and which we are not. I mean, we all have different circumstances, but I think they need to shift in how they treat us. It just shouldn't be a case of when they want something done, they try and use you. It should also be ambassadors or staff at the High Commission who value us. It's not just respect, and you feel sometimes you just want information. You don't want anything. You're not reporting that you need their help or for funeral money. So from my experience as being part of leadership in the community here, I can speak to that. The other aspect also then comes to the resistance part. I think the resistance part sometimes can be misconstrued. There are two aspects. Sometimes you also behave like we know it all, and which I think is also not very helpful on our part. So we also have to find a way that transmits the message that we have left. We don't know everything. We're just different, but we're basically Zambians, and all we want is the best for our country. And we can still learn from people at home. There has to be that cross exchange. So the trust factor is an issue, and in my view, it needs work from all of us. It cuts both ways, but I think the embassies and high commissions have a lot to change. They have a lot to do to change that perception, because certainly, and I allude to Frank, there's no way, even if you want to contribute something, when you don't respect me or treat me or even return my calls, I'm going to be part of that. So the new government has really to work very hard. We are not enemies. We are not smarter than anybody. I know we are lucky, some of us, to be in these positions, but I think all we want is just fair play, being treated fairly. That's all we're asking for. That's all.
Okay, we're getting towards the end of the program, but I'm gonna pose the last question here, because the idea here is, if you listen to the video there I played, was shifting away from that £50, $50 that we send to Zambia for consumption into something real. And to me, the only thing that can drive that is government policies, government laws, incentives from back home, for us to stretch our pockets and start remitting more money and towards real projects. Do you think we've got we've got policies, support, laws, and incentives for Zambians, and are we working together to achieve that? And are there incentives for us to do that? Because I'll give you an example. I asked one of the people who participated in the last diaspora conference. I said, in Kenya, the government has allocated land to Kenyans in the diaspora for the greener city. They're building universities, hotels. They've also allocated land with title deeds, a place called Tatu, where diasporans who are retiring can go and build their retirement home. Those are greener cities. So I asked her, what is some of the things that you'll be doing out of that conference? Says, no, we're looking at land to start building, similar to greener city. Then I asked the question, has the government facilitated that? I said, no. We're talking to the chiefs. That makes things difficult. You know, I'm not bragging. Some of us, we've got land in Zambia. To get that title deed is not a joke. Mamuela, you know about that. So you tell me without government policies, clear policies, incentives, like what Mabimbe said, you think we're going to achieve what we want as a Zambian diaspora? The fact that we are fragmented. That's the last question for all of you, starting with Mwelwa, and then Frank, and then Bachasaya, then Nelson.
I think to put it into context, one of the things I find wanting by our governments, and I start by the government because the government are the drivers. We have allowed governments and the government workers, our ministers, to have a very laissez-faire, attitude towards the diaspora or even any other important ministry. And unless it's going to give them a benefit when they come next election, they don't really concentrate on much. So I always had that feeling where, I'm in the diaspora and I need something. I need a passport. And like Frank said, I go to the London embassy and I get there and somebody says, oh, go and have a photocopy of your NRC. And I'm thinking, in this day and age, I need, now I'm thinking this is starting from Zambia. It starts from Zambia. That's where people ask you for photocopies of your NRCs. They ask you for all the rubbish. You sit there in an office and you're waiting for the minister to come at whatever time it feels like. And because we haven't been, demanding excellence from our ministers or our government workers, we equally don't demand it from the embassies. We've been seeing it for years. I mean, how many years has the London embassy been, for lack of a better term, I'll say rubbish? Because I remember when we were changing our passport, and the way they handled the entire process was one ridiculous, exercise. It left you feeling really embarrassed as a Zambian. But if we begin to demand excellence from the government workers, it will spill over into foreign missions. And even when they create whatever policies they're going to create, because I highly doubt there are any policies that exist. The only one I know of is when is a returning student, when you get your cars, I think you don't have to pay, maybe, and again, it's only one car. So these are very loose incentives. They're not really concrete, but we need more smart, targeted incentives. So for example, if the government says maybe in the UK, there are people that are earning maybe 1,500. If they're able to send back £50, maybe eventually, maybe at the end of the year, they are eligible maybe to get land somewhere at a ridiculously lower cost. You don't need to go and get your title deeds. The title deeds will be ready from, such incentives, because then people have something worth, and when you look at the £50, you think, what, no, £50 isn't that much. I could spare £50 every month. So that's where I think the disconnect is. If we demand
just hold that piece. I mentioned about $50 or £50. There are 200,000 Zambians in the diaspora. There is a project in Zambia which requires $50 million. So that £50 times 200,000, we're talking of $10 million.
Yeah, but we've equally got to look at the different economies that we are all in. I'm looking at the UK because I've been there, but you might be in India where the cost of living, you cannot earn that, you can't spare that 50. So there's that logic as well. And that's why Mr. Chishimba had talked about data, which was very important. So we need that coming all together. And that's why I keep insisting, say, we need our politicians to do their jobs. We need them to be educated so that they can look for these opportunities. They can set smart goals, things that are achievable. You can see something is measurable, it's relevant, it's time. All these things begin to play, into being, because they're looking at things that are practical. We're not just guessing. Because sometimes when you actually say, well, the guys in the diaspora, put yourselves together. This is where the other thing is. A lot of people in the diaspora are out of touch. You haven't been home for a long time, so you're not in touch with what the needs in Zambia are. But the government knows what the needs are. If they know that the needs that they have maybe is the source of, for example, they need a place where they can borrow money, rather than borrowing from the banks at the high rate. Maybe they can borrow from a group of people in the diaspora who are maybe elitist, maybe they're earning ridiculous amounts and they're able to send something like maybe £2,000 a month. I don't know. I'm just going off my head here. But there are all those little things where people need to be educated. And I think that's the other thing. If our politicians were educated to a level where they are able to look, this is for example, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I think they're the ones that are supposed to actually be pushing a lot of all that we're talking about. That's where it's supposed to be stemming from.
Yeah. Over to you, Bimbe, on the same issue. Frank wasn't there. Frank, I'll come back to you later.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
I think yeah, we've said quite a number of things. I think then we need, as again I come back, is the changing. We've got to look at most of the processes for services and everything in Zambia were designed for somebody who is in situ. They were not designed to deal with what we are trying to ask for. So as long as we don't reconfigure those, it will still be a problem. So for example, everybody putting money in some place, you need a vehicle to do that. Banks can provide those facilities, but the laws restrict them in the way they operate. So there've got to be certain things that needs to move. Again, probably it's us in the diaspora to try and emphasize those kind of things. Passport is another thing. Why should I be in Zambia to deal with that? I want to open a bank account. Why should my presence be required, for example? So there are those little things that I think that we start needing to reconfigure our system. Information is very, very scanty in Zambia. I'll know more about what's happening in Zambia from, say, university libraries here in the UK than I would get from Zambian. So again, the government needs to really provide a lot of this kind of information, and also companies need to provide. For example, I don't know how things happen in Zambia. It's like, in Livingstone, Commercial Bank, who is that one? Zambia Building Society announced this more wonderful product for diaspora. You go to their website, there's nothing. There's no information. How do you access that? How do you apply for that? Do you need to travel to Zambia? Zero. So again, those things just die there. So it's more about kudos, so to speak, maybe. So yeah, there is a lot that needs to be done. I don't know, maybe competition. And again, I probably changing some of these, allowing this flexibility within some of the private sector, maybe to create more innovative and creative products and vehicles that we diasporas we can hook into. We don't need as diasporas to even come together. If there's something that is there, I can just log in and it's accessible.
Yeah.
I think so. Innovation is lacking. I don't know whether it's a lack of thinking or it's a lack of the regulation is stifling, or I don't know. So
I think you, Bimbe, you're right. How come Ghana, they even go beyond what they define diaspora everywhere? Is them they are saying we're not just looking at Ghanaians, we are also looking at the Native Americans, and not only that, we're gonna provide them land. Title free, everything, so that they can come and settle and invest in Ghana. Over to you, Vachasaya.
Thank you, Patrick. I would like to say that I think going forward, one of the things that has to be done is changing, or at least the new government changing how things were done. So for instance, they really should consider, at least in the initial phases, and I know there are budgetary constraints that I know the president, for instance, introduced new positions, PSS, special duties, and all those things. So I think a position or office should be created for the diaspora. And what that would mean is we'll hold that person or office accountable. Now, I know previously President Banda tried it, but I learned later on that there was no budgetary, purse attached to that. So I don't know how government works, but there has to be a way where this is put in the budget. And maybe this is where it leads into law or I mean, the president has special powers to appoint anybody, so he could do that. And I think from then on, we know that if we have an issue, this person in office is the one that's accountable. And this will be, to Babimbe's point, then be a driver. You know, it's an office that we can go to, then we don't even have to deal with the embassies. And in my view, maybe somebody who's back in Zambia, who's been there in the diaspora, who understands the frustrations that we go through, would be an ideal person for that position, or even somebody in the diaspora. But there has to be a link that that person, that's all he's devoted to and nothing else, and not some office, someone in the ministry of, or a desk that's just stuck somewhere, it's just a name only. So there has to be a different way of doing things for us to move forward. And again, most of my colleagues have alluded to the experiences in Zambia. I had a situation where just to change my documents, the bank told me that I had to send this by FedEx. And I said, I mean, can't I get or give approval just, you know, but virtually? I mean, you know, you can do e-transfers now, or even files, you can DocuSign them. No, it was a big deal. Until I had to escalate it to senior management. Now, that cost me almost 4 weeks. You know, those are things that should change. And to Avinta's point, things have been designed for people who are on the ground. To do something or check on property, you have to fly. It shouldn't be that way. So I know there are people listening in government. If you are listening, the president, think about this, a specific position or PS level for the diaspora. This is a start. I know there are budgetary constraints, but you know, they'll get huge returns this way. And we can't keep on talking about the same things, same issues, same things, because then, to Abimbe's point, or Frank's point, or Mura's point, all these things to talk about, you know, the barriers that we're facing in commerce, in establishing networks. We have ideas on how we can help them and also help ourselves, because we're actually helping ourselves. It's just a good thing to do that. Something you've suggested works and helps you yourself and our people. So we're, you know, when we say this, we're not just wanting to help, no, and other people actually can help in different ways or also gain in different ways. So it's a two-way thing at the end of the day, but something needs to be done. We can't go on talking about the same things year in, year out, or 10 years from now. No.
That was fantastic. What you're trying to say, Machasaya, there is we need to change. We cannot do things the same way we've been doing it, especially that, you know, we've got a new president, you know, who is very successful, who is methodical, who wants to do things right. I think this is the right time to change things. Frank, what can you say about that before I make the closing remarks?
I think there are a few things that we have to consider here. So the starting point when we compare Kenya and Ghana, the starting point there for a lot of changes to come into place was the will of the people, the willingness of the people to demand change, to demand things need to improve because they wanted to do it for the country. And there's something you mentioned at the start, at the top of the program, that there's not been data collected, but at the same time, the person at the event said 95% of the people in diaspora want to invest in their country. Well, where have you plucked that? Where have you plucked that bit of data from? Where is that? Why does 95%?
What does 91% equate to?
Yeah,
91% of 7.
Is it 7? Is it 10? Is it 1,000? Is it? So when we talk about the
and
number,
how did you collect that data? How did you collect that data? Is the source reliable?
When we talk about the number of people in diaspora, and that's a bit that we got to be careful, is how much of the people of the 200 something thousand are actually willing to say, I'm going to invest back home. So that should be the starting point. How many people are willing? Because we could just be talking and say, we'd like to invest back home. We want things to be relaxed. We don't even know how a farm looks like. We've never even thought about investing in anything. We've got no idea what businesses have been run in the country. And then we talk about, this is what I want to invest in. So that's quite important to actually figure out the numbers of people actually willing to invest. And are people actually willing to invest in the bonds that are actually available at the moment, or any things that are available? People done research to find out if there's anything that is available to invest in at the moment. The system is not perfect. It's far from it. It's annoying. It's so bad. It needs a lot of change in it. But the one thing that needs is a willingness of the people in diaspora if there is enough people in diaspora that are knocking on the door and say, we need change, I think the problem that we've had over the years, we've had probably 10, 50 people saying things need to change. That is, nobody looks at the numbers to say that's significant numbers for change. But that when there is a significant amount of people singing that song to say we need change, the government will listen to that change. At the moment, there is not enough. I don't feel there are enough people out of the 200,000 that we have in the diaspora. I don't think we have enough people who are singing loud enough for willing for there to be change. And I think until we get enough people singing on the same hymn sheet and agreeing on what they need to do and agreeing that things need to change and creating a connectivity between people in diaspora and people back home and actually understand what this is going to mean for their country. And I think reading about Ghana, that's the one thing that the Ghanaian people have understood. The people who are living in Ghana, that's one thing that they have understood. They've actually seen those are not our enemies. They've got the knowledge, they've got the skills. Let's learn from them. And oh, by the way,
they've got the money also.
They got the money. They got the money. I can work on their farm and do all other things. And then they've created a thing. Ghanaians do business to the UK. Nigerians do business to the UK. There's an Indian company, there's an Indian shop near me.
But Frank, what stops us from doing that?
Yeah, they import literally all those things just coming in, and some that just involves somebody creating a link between the two countries. So the two things that we have to look at it. Yes, the government needs to do something, but also the people need to do something, because I feel the will of the people is what drives a lot of policies in what the government does.
I think I would be so unfair not to allow the boss to say something. Were you listening, Aka?
Yes, I've been following in and out.
Okay. Closing remarks. Come in. I've given you 5 minutes before I close. Thank you so much, Frank, for that fantastic assessment.
Yeah. Thank you, Patrick. Again, without taking anything away from what everyone has said here, I want to say that and I've heard a lot of things that have been suggestions and ideas. I think one of the things that I want to say is that we have a responsibility as a diaspora community as well to show that we bring value other than just remittances. Okay, that's understandable. Remittances is a natural occurrence. Okay, it's not just by, or we want to help the government. We are really helping our people back home, our individual families back home. So really what we want is actions by design. And what I mean by that is we need deliberate actions that we can take as a diaspora to demonstrate and show that we can effect positive change in terms of development back home. And what I mean by that is that if you, Mr. Chirufya, and Akashamba were here, and my sister Bamwelwa, and my brother was Chilima, what we need to do, if you and the four of us decided we're going to put together $100,000 in one common investments bank account, and we're going to start a waste management company in Lusaka and take care of all Lusaka and have an agreement using private public sector framework and manage Lusaka City West on their behalf, and in that become millionaires like Mr. Ndambo, and in the process Lusaka gets rid of cholera. You see what I'm saying, eh? Those are things that we, the diaspora, have the responsibility to demonstrate. Right now, I have not seen any demonstration of such a nature other than individual small-scale enterprises that we also do. If Aka has a small farm in Mayukwa, raising 50 cows, then that's it. No, we need grand-scale investments from us, the diaspora.
But Aka, don't you think we need to come together? Because some of those projects will require volumes.
Let me give you an example. Yes.
Small amounts, but volumes.
Yes, that's what I said.
And one of the things we talked about is fragmentation. How do we come together? And because Aka, I mentioned something like it costs $50 to $100 million to put up a pharmaceutical company in Zambia. There's no pharmaceutical company in Zambia now at the moment, reliable one. Everything is imported from India. The government obviously will be forced to give a guarantee that they will be buying from that pharmaceutical company, and they will also pass laws to stop other people from importing drugs because there's a pharmaceutical company in Zambia. So the government has facilitated that. So you think if the government said that, you think Zambians in the diaspora, even 10,000 of them, cannot put money together to make it $50 million, $200 million?
But it's the other way around. What we need is to start first before government.
Yeah, but then somebody needs to group us together first.
No.
But this is what.
Who's that somebody?
Two, three people cannot do it. Two, three people. I'll give you an example. Countries like Kenya, Ghana, they've got a diaspora desk, permanent secretary, director, in the midst of to coordinate, to collaborate the diaspora. And
yeah, but
so you know what I mean? They've got laws, clear laws in place.
but those are.
I think what
I wasn't given my 5 minutes before.
Okay. Yes.
I didn't even.
Okay, go ahead, Aka. Go ahead.
Let me. No, I mean, look. This is my personal opinion. On personal opinion, I'm against bureaucratic structures and layered governance structures. Okay, that actually negates. I mean, we have had diaspora desks as far back as Sata's time. In fact, Chiruba's time. Okay, the question is, what is stopping us between you and me to come together and set up an enterprise in Zambia? The first thing that starts is let's register a company with Pakra in Lusaka, and then have an idea, and then slot investments pitch out there to allow Zambians to invest in that idea. But this idea has to be a bankable business idea, where investors. Let me give you an example. Here in the United States of America, USAID, and also we have what we call International Development Institute, that actually gives money. They would actually give you $20 million. USAID will give you $20 million to do a project in a least development country if your project is a sustainable project and it also has a mass effect on the people. You know, we're talking about prolonged sustainable development projects. They will give you funding. All I'm saying is that you're right on one point. We are too fragmented. Number two is we are a very suspicious and superstitious driven people. That is cultural things, of course. We can work through all that noise. But we're very, very, very also, like I said, very suspicious. Okay, if Aka comes and said, "Look, I want to buy 20% in your project," or how about this? We want to keep things to ourselves. Okay. Last point. To underscore what I'm saying. A young man today posted on my Facebook page and said, "Oh, my father left me a mining license and exploration license where we have been doing digging for emeralds in Northwestern. And he's crying that there's no government empowerment. And I said to him, but why do you need government empowerment? The fact that you have an exploration license, the fact that you have actually identified the mineralization in that area for emeralds, that is enough for you to approach a financier and give you 100 million that you need, that government can't even give you. Or contact Mr. Chirufya. This is just theoretical. Contact Mr. Patrick Chirufya and Bamwelwa and Dr. Bimbe and let them invest in your company. Sell them 40% of your stake. That's how we should show our relevancy as diaspora community. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Anybody to add on to what Aka has said?
I guess I can.
Yeah,
I can add
go ahead.
something.
Add something. Yeah.
Yeah, I think to this point, maybe, and I think Aka was being a devil's advocate, so which is very, very good. What I can also say is actually there are Zambians doing things, and maybe what they need to do is tell the story. I mean, I met Zambians in the diaspora doing things. For instance, I know a Zambian, a group of Zambians from Canada who have set up a solar company. And at the time, they even paid the 250,000 for them to be considered an investor, right? So because that also used to be a barrier for Zambians to come up with that kind of money, just for you to be treated as an investor. So to your point, there are Zambians doing those kinds of things, and maybe they should tell those stories as well, so that actually we are from the diaspora.
They need to share.
So that then people can make the connection. So, but to your point, I totally agree. We have to show relevance. It's not just about talking. We also have to say, you know what, we can do this, we've done this, and we've delivered.
Yeah, I think what you said, Aka, is true. Some of us, we're doing some projects in Zambia, though at a not large scale, medium scale. But again, I think what I've realized is we do it secretly. We don't trust each other. Why can't we share those successes? Come together and say, this is what I'm doing. Maybe there's somebody who can invest in there. Actually, when I went to Zambia, some of my friends were complaining that you do things secretly. You don't tell people what you're doing. So there was a project that came up when I just went to Zambia, which requires a lot of money, but very good returns. Within 4 weeks, 6 months, you get back your money. And I went to some Zambians who were complaining before that I don't tell them what I'm doing. And they all just ran away. They've never come back to me. So again, sometimes you want to work with your friends, but it's possible that maybe they didn't even trust me. Says, how can he make such kind of money in such a short period? But this is real. So Mr. Bimbe, what can you say about the devil's advocate?
Yes, that's true. I like what he said. Yeah, it has to be two-way. We have to pick certain areas and do that.
It has to be a collaboration.
Collaboration. How we come to do that, I mean, it's about trust. It's about understanding each other. It's about the market. But also, I like what Josiah said. We need to also hear from people that are doing it or have tried to do it. Not only their success, but we also need to learn what they failed, what they found, the pain points, because that leads to, avoiding those problems or seeking to change certain things. So yeah, I think visibility is important to learn what other people have done.
But let me add something real quick about Chirufya. One of the things we need to begin to, let's also begin to, like you're saying, I am agreeing with storytelling, but also let's commend as a country where we are coming from. Because, it used to be, look at the policy changes that have happened. Dual citizenship was a huge policy change. From not allowing, if you took up a citizenship in America or Canada or Australia or anywhere, you lose your Zambian citizenship.
And that was done by the PF. That was done by the PF.
Well, it started with the MMD. The consultation process, it's been a very ongoing process, in fact, from Mwanawasa's time, to where the PF realized, you know what, we have to implement it. There was a lot of inertia initially. And so we need to give credit to ourselves as a people, as a nation. Say, look, we've taken really bold steps that other countries that we are comparing ourselves to have done in the last 20 years.
Yes.
And India did that a long time ago. Ghana did that a while ago, and others. And so we are really playing catch up. And so those bold steps were done by the PF. We give credit where it's due. That was a bold move. We gave credit when it happened. It opened up the possibilities of us, as some of us are Zambian Americans, to actually leverage the capital market here and move some of that capital back home. Number two, we need to listen on talking and conferences and so on and so forth. It's the same thing back home. It's a cultural thing. You have doctors having more workshops than they spend in wards taking care of patients. You see what I'm saying?
Allowances.
It's a very, very cultural thing. The same thing can be extrapolated on a larger scale in terms of the population cultural as vis-a-vis work and action, right? We have more workshops and conferences than actual investments and production. I would love for us as a diaspora to actually take a lead and bring some of those success stories that Mr. Chirima was referring to. Those our colleagues who are doing it. We need storytelling. That way we can know, oh, this can be done this way, this can be done this way, these are the resources available, and so that people can be galvanized towards a learned experience. And so, without really taking away much.
But again, Aka, as Zambians, we are not good at capturing data, keeping information research. So if it was other countries, those people would be celebrated because somehow somebody was going to capture that data.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I have been propagating the improvement in the storytelling using data, not only because I work in this field as a data scientist, but because data will tell you a lot of what's happening that you can see through just ordinary observation. Okay, we can add some numbers to what is really happening. And so I agree with you. This also, again, goes back home. I mean, look at the way that people don't even trust the numbers that is coming out of Central Statistics Office and many other places. And Central Statistics Office itself is very limited in what kind of data they capture and so on and so forth. No one can tell you clearly in Zambia what our unemployment rate is right now. Of course,
how many people are in the diaspora?
Right.
Zambians. They won't tell you.
So I agree with you that yes, in terms of data, we need a lot of work there. Now, last point on data is also that it's availability of the platforms on which that data actually lives. That's another problem, because you can say we don't have, we're not capturing data, but there is no infrastructure.
That's the point.
Right. In that respect, I'm talking about the availability of underlying, ICT infrastructure and availability of high-speed internet connectivity and all those things. It's not available across the country, and so that actually hinders the capture of data, and then the infrastructure is not there where to actually raise that data. And then it becomes really, it negates accessibility of that data to people like me and you who can actually use that data and
utilize it
effectively. So when you look at this, that's why you have to watch what Honorable Minister Mtati is doing. He's one minister that I follow very closely. He's very deliberate in the way he's doing things. Just follow what he's doing very carefully. A lot of people, there's a lot of noise going on, these teachers and that, but follow what Honorable Mtati is doing. You'll be amazed. He has the vision and is looking at where exactly to put that ICT infrastructure in. And so just as the last point, pay attention to what he's doing. I hope to bring him this week, actually, on TVBakwetu.
That would be fantastic. Bimbe, I can see you are itching. Go ahead. And
no, I wanted to say, because I like what Aka's mentioned about data, is something that I've always thought about. Because if here in the UK or anywhere, there are companies that are just there, they provide data to companies. Routers, for example, they provide data, they sell that. Probably something that we diasporas could come in and create that.
Yeah.
Data. Because if somebody wants to build a hospital, you don't know the population.
This is what we were talking about yesterday.
Oh, that's
Aka, my job, I'm a financial manager. So we sometimes I work for NHS, the largest hospital organization in the whole world. So sometimes we need money for a project. So I have to do a business case. But you know what is important when I'm doing that business case is data.
Yeah.
Because I have to send that business case to NHS England so that they can fund that project. But they want data. Why are you looking for an extra MRI, machine, which costs a few million pounds? And the data will tell that demographics have changed. That data is what you're gonna use now to present that business case. Go ahead, Nelson Bimbe.
Yeah. So it is something that I remember. There was a project that we needed to do at the place that I used to work to target what they called poverty or whatever. And it got stuck because we couldn't define what that poverty is because they were lacking numbers. Most central statistics offices in most African countries didn't have the capacity to do that data. If they had data, they wanted to sell it in its really various form. So that's how that project couldn't happen. But however, out of that, something came up where they started changing this statistic office into more quasi-government kind of agencies rather than, I don't know. It is something that could be done, but there is certain levels of data that private sector could actually do. For example, employment surveys, there's nothing.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of potential there.
There's potential to that. Yeah.
It's not just selling to government itself. That you can sell it to research across the world. Because of Africa, there isn't data coming out. So if I was to do a research on Africa, give it to Vedanta or Barrick Gold or anybody who wants data on Zambia, CNN wants data on there.
CNN, BBC, Sky.
If we set up a data company, we could easily run surveys and quasi surveys to populate all kinds of data, consumer data, consumer behavioral based data, just population health data, all kinds of data that you can actually package it in a way that you can actually sell it to universities in the Western world.
Aka, what are you talking about? We were talking about it today. We are saying Ghana has managed to attract diaspora and investment beyond African diasporas. They're even attracting Native Americans. Then somebody says, what if you collected data on Zambia? Because look at Zambia, new president, here is the government that has got, they are fighting corruption, good governance, democracy, there is peace, Victoria Force. A very peaceful country. I was in Zambia. You can go anywhere at night, everywhere. Yes, there used to be few, attacks in Lusaka, but very peaceful country. I was traveling at midnight everywhere. I can park my car anywhere. But the point is, do those Native Americans who are migrating in Ghana, do they have that same data that Ghana provides about Zambia? Because Zambia would be the best destination of Native Americans who wants to come and live and invest in Zambia. Over to you, Aka.
Again, for me, this presents an opportunity. We are talking about opportunities here. What we can do as a diaspora community. I'm not an ICT expert. I'm a data scientist, so I use the data. Experts can create those infrastructures in technology, right? So what we want to do is not only is education becomes even more important. It's not just going to school becoming a teacher, because you'll be deployed in 2023. It's not just going to school to become a nurse or a police officer, or we're looking forward to. It's also going to school to learn how to develop software engineers, software developers, and we need those kinds of skill sets being developed by universities and learning institutions for us to be able to build our own database infrastructure. Exactly. On what infrastructure on which this database can actually raise. Because that is a building block.
Yes. Yeah, Aka, what you're saying is, I'm told in some countries, kids as early as 5 years, they start coding.
Yeah, exactly. So we want kids in Kaputa, in Sanfia, in Zambezi, in Chadiza, to have connectivity in their classrooms. I'm looking for a Zambia where a school in Chama district at primary level has a computer lab, which is with optic fiber networks, where this is fast. Kids can go in there, can begin to learn how to code. And when you get the kids introduced to ICT at that level, their mind is sharp, their mind is exploratory. They have imaginations, they can learn, and within 2-5 years you're going to have hackers in Zambia. You're going to have kids that can actually
Aka, we can talk in the background.
That's the last point also.
I need to save this program. This program is so powerful because if it goes beyond 2 hours, we've lost it.
Okay.
1 point.
Rachasaya 1 minute, but Bimbe 1 minute. When we are before 2 hours, you need to end the program. And you guys, thank you so much in advance for coming. Aka, you're a late comer. You came. Mr. Bimbe, Mr. Chasaya, Mwelwa, thank you so much. 1 minute for Mr. Chasaya, 1 minute for Mr. Bimbe.
My 1 minute actually adds on to Aka's point about being grateful for what has been achieved so far. I remember making that keynote speech April 5th, 2009. And I remember my parting words to the audience then was that Tulivana Venu. And later on, President Bana invited us to State House and he said, those words made me cry, like they pierced me. So I will do citizenship. I will push for a diaspora desk. And there were policy changes. Thank God the PF picked up on that. There's a policy document that they have, and they refer to those instances. So what we want for the new government is to continue upon what has been achieved so far, fill in the gap so we continue. But I think for us, we have to keep pushing. keep talking. Being, in the computer science space, I totally agree with Aka about the need for ICT infrastructure, because some of the applications, just the volume, you can't run them with the kind of infrastructure that's there. We had an outage last week on Friday, where one of the companies that provides internet services called Rogers, just the internet shut down. It tells you that almost all the infrastructure is run on the internet, but also it tells you about how dependent we've become. And of course, they didn't have a business continuity that was robust. But the point I'm trying to make is that even for applications that work, we need to sort out the ICT infrastructure in Zambia for our internet speed. You don't need kids in Kaputa to go to Lusaka. Internet is crucial. And every time I'm making phone calls, it's an inconvenience if you're on WhatsApp. You hear this calls breaking, and I'm saying, hopefully the new government will feel and address this problem. So definitely those 2-3 things about memory, about being grateful, and then we'll still keep pushing. We still have a long way to go, but I think let's celebrate the achievements so far.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chasaya. Mr. Bimbe, 1 minute.
1 minute for me. I agree with what everyone has said, what Aka said, and what Chasaya. Yes, we need to celebrate what we've achieved. And we need to also learn how to do these things. And I hope with the new government, which seems to be understanding, can do that. I would also like to take the Aka's challenge. I think it is something that I'm really interested in data kind of gathering. The sense that nowadays mobile phones, smartphones are everywhere. I think crowdsourced data collection could be possible for certain type of data. For example, crime data, people report crime. You can collect those by simple application because they've got GPS, they've got what you can locate where it is, you can display it on a map. And I think with your data, you can analyze why there's so much crime. Then you can push more police in that area. There's all those kind of things. Yeah, I think it's something that is food for thought for me. I need to think about that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bimbe. Mwelwa, 1 minute and close the program. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I think in closing, I would still be. I think Aka's point was very, very, very valid when he says that we equally need to set ourselves up with challenges that, look, we can do this, and that the government can maybe see the potential. I still think that our governments are a little lazy or a little hasty, or they're not as hasty to step up and do their part, because they're the ones that know where they might need money for something. They're the ones that know where exactly there's a need for, and they're the ones that can create laws, policies that can be directed to whatever, because they can target and they know, okay, we want this number of people in maybe Asia to maybe invest in this or in that, or we need this many people to come back and that kind of thing. So I would still be putting a lot of pressure on the government to do their part, I think, on the policy and on the implementation. So it's not just left to the different people. We're so defragmented equally, because we're in different countries, different earnings, different economies. So that is always going to be existing, whether we like it or not, but they can bring us all together. So I would still be putting some pressure on them. And to our viewers,
thank you so much, Mwelwa, and to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.
Bye. Bye, everyone.